Good evening. This is the Economic and Downtown Development Subcommittee, scheduled for 5:30. Today is December 6th, 5:30. December 5th, 5:30. This is regarding a motion response in the Hampton Canal District update. It has to do with a report on the process used to track potential development in the Hampton Canal District, as well as the agreement between the city and Salapoli regarding the parking lot facility, as well as the proposed high-rise in the Hampton Canal District. Also, an update on Hampton Canal development project. Mr. Clerk, if I could have you please call the roll.
Chairman New.
Here.
Councilor Janess.
Here.
Councilor Scott.
Here.
3 present.
Thank you. With us also, we have Councilor Eric Chia and directors of DPD, Giovanni Rose, assistant city managers. No objection from my committee members. We could go to Giovanni Rose to have her give an update on it. Please.
Great, thank you so much. So I'd love to, before we jump into the details about HCID, talk a little bit about some of the economic development projects that have been ongoing in addition to the HCID. Those include things like this council voting for the zoning changes to the downtown mixed use and in support of the MBTA communities zoning. We believe both of those zoning changes are going to have a really positive impact on development opportunities in downtown, generating hopefully new development that will bring in new units. We do anticipate the MBTA communities in particular will result in a net positive of construction of new either rental or homeownership units within the city, which is fantastic. In addition to that, we anticipate seeing mixed use development, so new retail and commercial opportunities, and obviously with sort of more people out and about, just being able to support some of the existing businesses we have. So in addition to that, our economic development team has been aggressively utilizing ARPA funds. The full council will later this evening get a report from our ARPA finance manager regarding a number of the economic development specific grants that we've been able to push out. Those include hundreds of thousands of dollars for economic resilience grants, which went to small businesses within the city, and also a separate pot that's for specifically storefront improvements. Sometimes people need new kitchen equipment, and sometimes it's really about improving the front door, front access, and signage. And so we felt that those were unique enough opportunities that they warranted kind of separate pots of money. And so this council will hear more about those specific awards later this evening. In addition to that, we've been doing things like launching a new pop-up program, which we're really excited about on Market Street. That is at 51 Market Street. It is essentially an opportunity for small businesses to kind of test their market presence. So this is a low barrier of entry for the small businesses. We're working with a third-party consultant, which is essentially leasing space from a downtown property owner. And then these small businesses are temporarily having access to this storefront, and it allows them in 4 to 6 months to essentially test how attractive their products are in the market, give them a sense of what foot traffic is like in downtown Lowell, get their name, their business in front of customers. The vendor that we're using for this has been successful. I think we are the 4th community in the Commonwealth that they've been working with, and they have successfully in each of their previous locations helped some of the businesses transition to permanent storefronts. And so we're working very closely with them and the economic development team. We received, I want to say, close to 50 applications for different businesses to be in the pop-up. There are 2 that are there right now, and every 4-ish months we're going to rotate to new businesses. We will of course, throughout this time, keep very close communication with everybody who expressed interest and those who actually are selected for the pop-up to see if our Economic Development Office can work with them to try to find some more permanent space in the long run. This is not just, you're in the pop-up for 4 months and then see you later. We're really hoping that we can transition as many of them as possible into permanent locations in the city. I don't know if there's anything else that you want to specifically bring up. Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I apologize for being tardy. We have another event down the hall, but I'm sure we're in very comfortable hands with the Assistant City Manager. But we're just here to try to help kick off some of these discussions. And once again, apologize for being a couple minutes tardy, but we'll all get down there at some point before the meeting starts.
Thank you, Mr. Manager.
And so just to kind of bring it back to the HCID. So the Hamilton Canal District was originally envisioned as being 18 parcels. One of those parcels was the what is now the courthouse building, and then the rest were, a number of smaller parcels. The city had always imagined building a garage, which we did on our parcel, and so the plan was never to sell that parcel. We have seen some early development within the HCID, which include the Appleton Mills, 110 Canal, which is occupied by a number of UMass Lowell divisions. We have the garage. Oh, and then parcels 8 and known as parcels 8 and 9, which are essentially 201 Canal, which is the apartment building that was developed by Wind Development, which crosses over the Songus Bridge. Obviously, a significant amount of public infrastructure has gone into the sort of underground to make the parcels developable within the district. We have a LDA with Lipoli companies. That LDA was for parcels 1 through 5. Parcel 1 is the parcel that Lipoli Companies has built the garage on. That is very close to completion. Based on our most recent communications with them, we anticipate an early 2024 final completion. They're very close to substantial completion, so we think probably hoping by the end of January that'll be a fully open garage. Lipoli Companies, through that LDA, also maintains parcels 2 through 5. So parcel 5 is an individual parcel that sort of had been acting as a parking lot, essentially, for construction workers across the street from 110 Canal. And then parcels 2, 3, and 4 are all adjacent to each other, and those are the parcels that are essentially front onto the canal that you can kind of see from Dutton Street. So those remain under that LDA with Lipoli Companies. We are in active communications, as I had mentioned in that motion response originally, with Lipoli Companies still on some planned changes that they'd like to see to the project as it had been negotiated. We've been in active communication, documents kind of flying back and forth. I think generally speaking, DPD has been receptive to some of the things that Lipoli Companies is bringing forward. The construction sort of cost and market at this time are slightly different than what they had been previously. But we think that the vision that they're working towards is still very consistent with the vision that we have for HCID. And we hope that we'll be able to, certainly before an LDA is modified, it needs to come back to the council. And so there will be a larger presentation to the council about what any changes to the LDA that they're recommending. And we're hoping to see that also come to the council in very early 2024. So that essentially also leaves parcel 11 and 12, which I guess if you exit the Hamilton Canal Garage along this, the street where the Songus Bridge is and look directly across the street, there's a vacant lot there. That is parcel 11 and 12. We are in active negotiations with an entity about those parcels. We're sort of on a number of versions of red lines for signing a potential memorandum of agreement. Essentially, that agreement is going to be will also be brought forward to the council, but the point of the MOA is essentially us agreeing that we're working with them specifically to try to get to an LDA. So it's not an LDA itself, it's more like we're committing to each other that we are exclusively communicating about getting ourselves to an LDA. That is something that we really, I'm sounding a little bit like a broken record, but that is very close and also something that I think this council will be seeing very soon. And then once we have that MOA executed, I think we're all going to be aggressively moving forward on trying to finalize the details of an LDA, which again is also something that this council will need to approve before execution. And so essentially that really means that Hamilton Canal to date has a very small number of parcels that are still open and available for development. 15, 16, and 17, which are all parcels that face onto Dutton Street. Parcel 15 was the parcel that the city got ownership from through the land swap with the National Park Service, so it's not something that we even owned and had the ability to sell for a really long time, but we do have ownership of that property now. And the city has been actively working on trying to market that property and also set ourselves up to get that development done. So DPD was successful in securing last year some assessment funds through the state to do environmental assessment so we can understand kind of what's underground there and how that might impact the potential development. And those were funds that we were able to successfully apply for and have been working on trying to get some of that assessment done, assuming that we'll be able to provide some future developer the information about what we have found in the parcel and then development, plans accordingly, sort of where it may be more appropriate to, place certain pieces of the building or not. And so just trying to have that information for developers up front certainly will save them a lot of money. And also one thing that I think is really important that the city has done throughout the course of the HCID planning is essentially creating parcels, number one, and also creating all of the underground infrastructure that frankly never existed previously. So actually installing the infrastructure that makes these parcels usable at all is something that the city did a significant amount of development on, and we're kind of at the place now where we have parcels that theoretically are ready to go.
Thank you. So I also allow me to recognize downtown chair, neighborhood chair Jack Monahan, and also Bob Casey is here as well. So let me turn to my committee members if they have any questions for Giovanni for the time being. Councilor Janess.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, thank you so much, Giovanni, for the detailed presentation and the updates on where everything is over there. That is something that obviously comes up quite a bit in discussions with neighbors in the neighborhood. When we had talked about this at the council level a month or so ago, I mentioned the idea of possibly putting out an RFP to see if somebody would be interested in building a small or medium-sized hotel on one of those remaining parcels. I think that with the fact that the state has now moved forward to take over the ICC for emergency housing, that's even a bigger possibility, and I think it's really something we should look at. And I don't know if there have been any movement on that. I know that takes time. We probably have to wait for that engineering study to come back to understand the built environment there. But I think that is a possibility and something we got to look at. One question I've got a lot from the neighbors has to do with the mound of dirt that's been on parcel 15 for basically since the garage was built. And at one point I thought there was an effort for the city to dispose of that dirt. I don't know if that's still an active project, if we may expect to see something happen with that soon. But I would just ask where we're at with that. And then on the potential modifications that Lowell is looking for the land disposition agreement. I understand it's a different environment now than when they purchased those properties. However, they have owned them for quite a while, and they have been sitting there. And, you know, there were expectations that they would begin this process quicker than they have now at this point. And so I'm a little frustrated with that. And I know the neighborhood is that really what we've seen get built over there is the garage the city owns, and now a garage that's going to compete with the one the city owns. And there's a lot of frustration there. So I would like to understand that better, and I understand that'll be coming forward soon, and I'm looking forward to that because I think it's whatever we can do to push things forward and get real active life in that area is very important. I fully appreciate all the work the city's done to get the infrastructure in there. It is much more of a usable neighborhood than it was. But those are kind of the questions I have at this point. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think
Go
the
ahead.
manager and I are going to split these up a little bit.
That's fine. Go ahead.
So
Giovanni.
I'm going to address the sort of question about the dirt pile. So a part of those assessment funds that we got from the state was also to assess that pile for reasons that, frankly, are probably more complicated than I think it's worth getting into too much detail. A part of the agreement with the national park when we were doing the land swap related to our ability to test and move dirt off-site. And there were a number of restrictions put in place, and to be frank, not all of them I totally understand the reasons for, but we agreed essentially that when we were excavating soil off the garage parcel, that we would not move it off-site. And so we were able to keep it on site by moving it to a different parcel. We are working to address that, absolutely. Clearly, no one's going to be able to do any development with a dirt pile there, and it's not something that we want to do. So our state funds also include the assessment and disposition of that soil pile, and that is something that we're actively working on. So I hope that in the next construction season, people will start seeing activity with that. So that's good news, and we're slowly working towards getting rid of that entirely and getting the parcel fully available and cleaned up. One thing, Counselor, that you touched upon was also this idea of like just generally this activation of the district and what that looks like and feels like. Certainly with the creation of the courthouse and some housing, we've already started to see some of those things. Our ongoing negotiations with the new entity that we're talking about disposing parcel 11 and 12 to, and with Lowell companies is absolutely focused on ensuring that what they're building is going to activate this space. And so we are including things like discussions about publicly accessible open spaces that these private entities are going to build and maintain as a part of the development. Spaces that need to not just serve the tenants, but to actually engage the public and to make it feel, frankly, like a place, like create a sense of place. One of the other things that I forgot to mention initially is that we've also been actively working towards we, the city, have a small commercial space in the HCID garage. We had a nice relationship with CTI related to their farmers market over the summer, and that really got us thinking that this idea of an indoor-outdoor market is really exciting and was very successful for them. And so that is something that we're actively pursuing within that commercial space. So we're really, we sort of built the space as a holder, without a tenant in mind specifically, but now we're actively working towards trying to get to a place where we can engage some kind of indoor-outdoor farmers market in the HCID garage, and we're actively working on that now and hope to be able to execute something so that in the next farmers market season, essentially, we'll have that space activated, and that we're looking at it being a more permanent thing. So not a season by season or summer only kind of thing. We are looking for a tenant to occupy that space year round and program it year round. And so we're hoping to get into like some lease term agreement that will allow for that space to be activated, which we think is going to be a really added benefit to the district and the neighborhood as a whole.
Madam Chair, you want to add to it?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the members. The farmers market was an exciting thing that I know that this council had talked about. So it is our hope that we will continue to grow that, as the assistant city manager had stated. But in regards to hotels, I don't really want to mention which one because we haven't contacted a few other flagships to find out what's going on. But it is believed that the city of Lowell should have anywhere between 80 to 120. Now, does that mean it's going to be, or could be, I should say, two boutique style? That seems to be the number that people keep coming back to. I've had the opportunity to speak to a couple of hotel owners, smaller, what you would consider smaller Boston hotel owners that have been in here to look around and to see if they were interested. They think it's a market for a larger player. So some of the larger players, I'm waiting for responses back. We have been also in discussions with the folks over at East Campus with the exciting news of the 10 acres that is happening over in that area. And Julie Chen has been, the Chancellor Chen has been an incredible partner on this as to where, when, and how the city sees, one or two hotels. Now, just for edification, the ICC is a story right now for probably another day. But in regards to the ICC, we will be, the city as well as the university will be putting together something in, I would say, the first quarter. We've had some small meetings in regards to the future of the ICC, and people may say that a hotel couldn't work there. Well, that was a rather large hotel. I believe the number was 250 overall. So according to the experts in the business, they think it's more, like I had stated earlier, 80 to 120. And is that one building or is it two smaller buildings? So the hotel is definitely a discussion that has been happening. In regards to the third issue, Councilor, that you had brought up about the timeliness, and everyone is recognizing what has been happening right now with finances and money and things of that nature. But you are correct. This is a little bit slower. It's been a lot slower. There was, as my understanding, a title issue. That was when when there was a transfer, there were title issues. I think it states it when you look at 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And this is not making up excuses for anybody. I've been involved with HCID, the redevelopment of Jackson Street, for probably the better part of 20 plus years as a legislator and now here. But there was some title issues that did push it back 9 months. But once again, 9 to 10 months, I believe, was one of the complaints we heard. They should still be moving forward, and that is happening. And to quote what the assistant city manager was saying, the LDAs and the MOAs and all of this, it sounds like being a broken record, but it is all very, very true in the sense of how we're trying to move this forward. We are, and I don't know if the assistant city manager discussed other opportunities that we have that we're going to be pushing into the JAM area, about grants that we spoke about. Okay. This is all, so I hope I'm answering your question, Councilor, directly. Yes, you're correct. There was a delay, but something probably should have happened, and it just didn't in that time frame. But there are a lot of other things which I'll hold until the council finishes whatever questions they have. But I think that covers the title issue, which is the delay that has been caused, the issue with the mound of dirt that has been there, and the hotels in regards to who we've talked to. We've had people up here actually touring the area, but I just think we're looking for a larger organization. And one thing has gone out. I'm waiting on two others to go out to see if we can get more interest. But once again, from the folks, GMH, I think is the name of the organization from UMass that is working on the 10 acres over there. In their opinion, they think it's 80 to 120. From the folks that I've talked to from a boutique hotel out of Boston, they seem to think it's 80 to 120. I don't know. There must be some formula because they're all coming into that same number. So, and my hope would be that we're talking to one of the major flags, and that's what they're called in the hotel industry, hopefully sooner rather than later. But it is something that you brought up, and we're trying to uncover and see what kind of interest we can get.
Thank you, Mr. Managers. Councilor Scott, any comment, question for
Thank you.
managers?
Yes, thank you. I guess the questions that I'm asked frequently are the same as Councilor Janess, just as far as when the shovels are going to, hit the ground, when it's actually going to begin. And the other thing that I'm commonly asked about is whether or not the plan has changed for the district. We've talked about the transit district now, like how it's all going to tie in together. We're talking, when Hamilton Canal was brought up, it was originally kind of sold as an innovation space for UMass Lowell. It was going to be an incubator space for industry, which has now become, it sounds like, the East Campus. So I'm just curious if we've looked at, if we're going towards a new master plan, like for that whole area, kind of tying everything together with the train station. Are we looking at more residential? I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that.
Thank you very much, Councilor. Myself and the Assistant City Manager and the team, we've been talking about this. If I can, we'll start near the Lord Overpass. With the Lord Overpass being completed, we've actually created some space. So we're hoping by the end of January to have a map to what the council has voted on already. Now, what I'm talking about is between the DMU zoning and the MBTA acceptance. What we're looking at could possibly be upwards of, I might stretch 5, but 5 lots that could be built on in a timely manner. And in speaking with the Lieutenant Governor, 3 of those lots have the MBTA ownership in there, as well as the city. So we're looking forward to bringing this map forward, which is going to overlay what the city has done already with the DMU, with the MBTA community zoning, showing where the city at this time, if you were interested in building, and I'm using an example, a 60-unit condo complex or a 60-unit workforce housing development, where that could happen. So there are, in our estimation, there are 5 properties that could be used between the city has control of 2 of them. The city and the MBTA could have control or portions of control of the other 3. So that's one particular piece that we hope to move forward on. But then it's important to note that DPD has put into a pro-housing grant, and I think this is okay to say this, because we're looking for upwards of $10 million, and we're hoping to find this out in the spring of 2024. What does that mean? This could revitalize or breathe fresh air into the whole jam area, which of course abuts 2, 3, 4, and 5. And we're looking at Jackson, Appleton, and Middlesex. If we're successful on this, we've been talking to Congresswoman Trahan, we've been talking to our senators to really start to push additional housing. This would be workforce housing, and in most manners, at least what we're looking at, some of the property is we could own it. Some of the property, it may be, it's private development that doesn't yet know that they possibly could be going up 5 stories. So there's a lot of potential in that area. If this does come through with the pro-housing grant, this could really give us another shot in the arm in this jam area that we've been working on for a number of years, that has done great things along Jackson Street. If you could remember back what Jackson Street did look like in 2000. So this is just us trying to maximize on this. If this pro-housing grant from HUD comes through, this is going to be a big positive sometime in the spring. And of course, that is all into the DTL, the downtown area, with the vacant and foreclosed commercial vacancy piece that the council will be considering this evening to kind of push that forward. The pop-ups that I believe the assistant city manager has already spoken about, as well as the economic development grants and the storefront improvements. So there is a lot going on in that area. We are at capacity in a couple of our garages in that area. We're trying to see if we can possibly push them around a little bit to create a little bit more space. There's just a lot going on, and one of the things that is really hamstringing us at this point is just this interest rate. We have the finance department looking at interest rates. We've been in talks with local banks to see what could be possible for us to assist some of these developers. I mean, another development, the Acre Crossing up the street here is going very well. I know the council is going to be invited to go to that, to take a tour of it. And there's other activity that could be happening up in that area that is going to be similar, home ownership type programming, stuff that I think the city of Lowell has been very good at. So I hope that answers all the things that have been happening or that could be happening. And I'm kind of looking at HCID 15 and 16 and 17 as being complementary to what could be happening at East Campus. It's no secret, this has been out, the 10-acre parcel, but we could be ready today in comparison to some of the exciting news that's probably, I'll say, a couple of months away. We've had a number of meetings with, once again, Julie Chen, Lieutenant Governor, and such, to find out how, and the only way to describe this explosiveness that can happen, and we're trying to pull HCID potentially into that. The council has expressed an interest to look around. I would ask that this committee give us a little bit more time. It has been, yes, if we think about HCID, it has been 20 years. But I think this is the first time we're really starting to see some serious activity. What the Assistant City Manager had stated with the potential MOA over 11 and 12, that is that land, I would say if you're coming from Dutton Street, right before you go over to the Songus Bridge, it's the land to your right. I would think that hopefully, in a very soon manner, we'll be coming to the council to say this is what we're thinking here. It's always been a housing parcel, and it'll show a little bit of activity. And that 15, 16, and 17 is, as the council knows, we've discussed a little bit with some commercial developers that are, would have taken it from us for free, practically, but that's okay. We're still out there swinging. We've brought in Keegan and Werlin, who is a firm out of Boston that hopefully in due time, we're talking about actually going into Boston and having a show and tell, if you will. Talking to a new set of developers, a new set of agents that we're looking to see who can come out. We're hearing there's an awful lot going on in and around the Boston area where people can't afford to grow in Boston. And I truly believe at this time, with the Lord Overpass being the way it is been dealt with, trying to push the MBTA to keep that stop open, which there's no indication that they wouldn't, but trying to advertise or trying to push out into the commercial world, come to Lowell, you're 52, I think it's 52 minutes away as opposed to being on 93 for an hour and a half. So this is all part of a economic development plan that we're looking at, and I believe the council does know that we did meet with some of our partners, was it 3 weeks ago, I believe, in trying to revamp our marketing efforts, and it's solely based around the economic development of the downtown as well as HCID and the remainder.
I do have a few questions around the timeline. First, I want to know the timeline for plan change in the project with Salapoli that you plan to bring it before the board. Give us that timeline for that. Come before the board for approval. Second, it's the parcel 15. What's the plan to removing that dirt? When do you expect that dirt to be removed by? The other question I have is regarding the plant. What is the development for developer plans to use parcel 11 and 12 for, and when do you expect to bring that the land development agreement, the LDA, before the council to look at on that? And what is the remainder of the parcel? What's the plan for that remainder of the parcel? Parcel 13, 14, 15, 17, I think 16, 17. Right, so please speak to that.
So for Lowell companies, as I said, we've been in communications with them for months, frankly, at this point about things. So based on their most recent update, we assume the garage is going to be in open and operating by February 1st, let's say. They're going to achieve substantial completion sometime in January, and then they're already negotiating with a third-party entity for the management and ongoing work within the garage. So we expect that to be up and running. Their intention had always been do one and then shift over, and so we expect that we'll have Lowell come in for a presentation to the council about what they would like to see done within the district by February, hopefully. And then essentially just order of operations, some of the things that they're recommending to do within the district will require some changes to the form-based code that exists, which is the overlying zoning of the district. Again, DPD has been knee-deep in these conversations since day one, and we have scoured the form-based code and feel that what they're proposing and the changes that they're asking for are still very consistent with the vision of the district. But that essentially, Lowell will come in, let's say in February. Very soon after that, assuming a positive reception from the council, DPD will put forward a vote for the council to recommend changes to the form-based code. That has to go to DHCD for approval. Once that is finalized, we can execute an LDA because essentially the LDA is going to specify exactly what they're going to build. And so we need to make sure that the zoning and the agreement are saying the same thing. And obviously, we can't sign an LDA with zoning changes without the council voting first. So just order of operations, that's how we anticipate that'll work. That's also going to be the same situation for parcel 11 and 12. Knowing the conversations that we've been having with that entity, they are also looking for changes that, again, we've looked very, very closely at and we think are very consistent with the plan as a whole, but do require some changes to the form-based code. So operationally, it's going to be very similar. We're going to sign an MOA. I'm genuinely hoping that that's going to be done in a matter of weeks, but I'm going to say by the end of January, just to be safe. That will give us, we're essentially both sides are agreeing only to talk to each other. There will be a presentation in front of the council. Hopefully, upon positive reception of that, we'll work towards getting the changes to the form-based code and then follow up with a formal LDA brought forward for a vote. So Lowell, I think we could genuinely have a new LDA in front of this council for a vote in February. For the MOA for parcels 11 and 12, probably pretty similar depending on how quickly we can execute the MOA that's already kind of floating out there. For parcel 15 and the dirt pile, as I said, we had gotten some state funding for that. So I do anticipate we'll see activity out there on that pile this coming construction season. So spring of 24, I guess it would be. And then as far as, the work related to disposition of the remaining parcels, which is essentially 15, 16, and 17, that's an ongoing conversation about, interest rates, as the manager said, interest in the construction of commercial spaces and how we can find a good balance between activating the space and meeting the original intent of the larger plan. Councillor Scott, you had asked has the plan changed? We think it's still a really good plan. We think that the zoning, the overlay that exists, yes, we're making tweaks here and there, but we think it still will allow the kind of development that we want to see. I think the other thing that's important to keep in mind is that the HCID falls within the JAM urban renewal area, which does allow us this flexibility of doing direct negotiations with individual developers, which is something that, is not typical for a municipality, but it's because it's in an urban renewal area, we are able to do this style of direct disposition. I do think that after we see some traction on Lowell companies moving forward on their development and hopefully getting an executed LDA, we can have another discussion as to whether or not we want to continue these individual conversations with developers, which we absolutely have had a lot of interest, or if this council, wants DPD to put out another RFP for redevelopment. I think all of those options are available to us and I think would make a lot of sense. But it would be nice to see some active construction because I think that helps generate some interest and energy.
Mr. Manager, anything to add, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Three to the members. Just looking at this, exactly what the Assistant City Manager is talking about, I think that in talking to Lowell companies, once again, their original intent all along is to finish the garage. And I think that we're moving towards finishing the conversations about 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then the MOA on 11 and 12. So provided that, and I have no reason to believe that people are misleading or not trying to do this, it makes sense that, at least with the garage, that they want to be open yesterday. They're missing a whole bunch of revenue, I think, from any perspective with the courthouse. So trying to get them open is going to be a good thing. But the 15, 16, and 17, I think staying with the original intent at this time, we have a balance of housing that should be going up, as well as the innovation. And the innovation over at 15 and 16 and 17, I think mirrors 110, the 110 canal where the university is. There seems to be tremendous interest. I was at an event last night with the Chancellor at UMass Lowell 110 Canal, and I can only tell you it was filled with probably 100 or so entrepreneurs talking about what the next piece is. Where can they go? And I'm only telling you what they were telling me privately, that Lowell is the place. So could we indeed sell 15, 16, and 17 tomorrow for housing? We could. And that's probably the simplest thing to do. But where we have parcels 2, 3, 4, and 5, 11, and 12 going into housing, I think the balance still, the original intent and the balance between housing and potential incubation, innovation, or businesses still lends itself to giving a little bit more time into 15 and 16, and it sounds kind of funny saying that after 20 years, but with what we have going on with the organizations and the companies I think we've started working with out of the Boston area, give it one more crack to see if we can get 15 and 16 into that innovation area similar to 110 Canal. And that would be my thought about this, given the fact that with the pro-housing grant and all the other housing that's been going on, or will be going on.
Let me go to Councilor Kachia if you have any comment or question. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Chairman Noon. Mr. Manager, did lots 1 through 5 have title issues, parcels 1 through 5 have title issues?
Mr. Manager, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the council. I believe it was 2, 3, 4, and 5. Lot 1 was where the garage is right now. Not to my knowledge that there was a problem there, but 2, 3, 4, and 5 did have an issue that caused us, so I've read, delay of about 9 months. And with that delay, this has caused this kind of cascading effect going forward.
When was the first time that Lowell reached out to you and had a new design or wanted a change in the design?
Giovanni's or Mr. Manager, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, through the council, that would probably be within the last, I would say, easily 10 months, maybe even a year. Probably very close to that. And that's something that the council will still have to okay in that area. But what made sense to me was the fact that the garage, all their focus is on the garage, so then they can build it first, utilize it through the daily receipts of say, the courthouse, and then the evening use it as their place to park for their for their housing.
So when they first come to you, and I'm just trying to figure this all out together, when they first come to you with the change, why weren't any of us notified at that point on, seeing what we're doing? I know we went into executive session, but it really wasn't about this piece together. Because it's concerning to me that developers go out and they bid for these things. We put hard dates in there, and then we push off other reasons why, and they throw all their assets in one place, and then they ask us to move dates on that one piece, but we don't see, everybody knew that these all had to be moving at one time to meet the 2026 date of completion of all of it. And it's concerning to me that people will use the COVID excuse, but 2020 was part of COVID when the bidding process all went out, so it's not like this is a surprise that everything is going to go up, and it's going to go up even further. So I'll be interested in see, are they asking the city to contribute more into this in tax breaks or anything like that in their current proposal that's coming forward?
So right now, the only changes that we've been asked for specifically are related to making amendments to the form-based code. The previous council, maybe this council, I can't actually remember when the TIF vote happened for the garage. This council? Okay.
Previous council.
So that's the only existing tax agreement that exists with Lowell companies on the entirety of his parcels. I don't know what their requests are going to be for those other developments. Certainly, the city has been pursuing things like MassWorks infrastructure funding to help support, surrounding the development in the right-of-way. But the only existing tax sort of agreement with Lowell is for the garage parcel on parcel 1, and the requests that have been made to us to date are strictly related to amending things to allow certain types of development within the code itself.
My only concern is that, did that 9 months actually have any impact on what they planned on doing in the beginning? That's the concerning piece to me, is that, I understand what you're saying, Mr. Manager, about the title and everything, but on my end, I just look at it as, did that 9 months impact this at all? If not, then we should have had a shovel in the ground before another 26 days. So at the end of this year, that shovel should have been in the ground, and we should have been moving forward. And it's concerning that we're just saying, okay, they never once reached out to us and said during that period of time, the first 2 years of this whole pact, that something was going to change or anything was pushing off, or the only thing we were told was just the garage and how they wanted to push that timeline a little bit, and we did that. So I feel the frustration of Councilor Janess and Councilor Scott, and also Chairman Noon, and it's just disheartening that we can always go back to government and say, look, you know what, you take the risk, we're going to get the reward. Well, we all signed a piece of paper that said, here it is, and if there was any challenges to that, whether it was the 9 months thrown off the schedule or whatever, normally you come back to the person right away when you see those changes coming in. If I wanted to dig 2 years ago and you said no because of a title, then that would have been all documented at the time and pushed something off, not just come at the last minute and say, hey, we're going to change everything, and we got a better proposal than what you have, so let's work together. That's my whole concern after listening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your time.
I do hope that Assistant City Manager Giovanni Byros is take note of that, the frustrations, because Councilor Cuchillas and Councilors Scott and Janess and myself and the rest of the council, frustrated over this, the agreement between Sao Paulo and the city. So any change down the road in the future, and that's why I want to know the timeline of this, so that we can be give notice to it. Let us know what's going on here. Councilor Scott, anything else to add to it? And Councilor Janess, first with Councilor Scott.
No, I guess the only thing I would ask perhaps is just that we try to get a more solid timeline brought forward to the entire council. Especially around Lowell, what the plans are. As Councilor Gitchia said, this has been pushed off for so long. I think we're kind of owed at this point in time a little bit more detail from them. So, thank you.
Let me also notice that Councilors Rita Mercier was here also. She probably just stepped out. And Councillor Dan Rook as well. Look, around the issues of the Hampton Canal District and the downtown, so a lot have been done on this. And yes, there's some frustration, but some good things is happening. I'm looking forward to more things is happening in the Hampton Canal District as well as the downtown with all some of the change that some of the proposals that the managers and his team has put forth. Councillor Jeunesse, anything else to add? If that's nothing else to add, I entertain a motion to adjourn. Second. Thank you. This hearing is adjourned.
Thank you, councilors.
Thank you.